Good day, folks. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Insta360 One R. It's Insta360's latest camera that can go from shooting 4K wide-angle footage to shooting 360 video, all with one device. I've been using it for about 60 days now, and I have developed some opinions on it, so let's just jump right in and take a look. So I just want to start out this video stating that I am not a huge fan of 360 degree video, but I am a huge fan of 360 degree cameras. And what I mean by that is I'm not a huge fan of those kind of tiny planet photos and videos, or even immersive VR videos that you can get on YouTube where you can scroll around. I don't have a lot of use for that in my workflow, but I still love 360 cameras and what you can do. I love to be able to reframe a shot and get perspectives that you can't normally get with a traditional camera. For example, this shot here, there's no way you could capture with a traditional camera. This was shot in 360, and of course then you can manipulate it, and of course then you can also get that look where there's no extension pole. It looks like there's just a camera floating out in front of you. So in that aspect, I really enjoy 360 cameras. Now what Insta360 done here is actually quite incredible. They've taken the best of both worlds. In one modular system, you can have a 4K action camera and you can have a 360 camera just by adding on a mod. Now there are some downfalls to this kind of setup, and we'll talk about it as we go on in the video. Now this really isn't a review of the Insta360 One R, and it's not a comparison against things like the GoPro or the Osmo Action. There are a ton of videos about that already on YouTube, and really at the end of the day they're all very similar. The differences between the different cameras and the quality are very minuscule, and it's not something that an average person would even notice. However, when it comes to the user experience of using a camera like this, there is a big difference, and that's basically what we're going to talk about in this video. Now again, this is just my opinion, my user experience. What somebody else experiences with it could be quite different. So with the Insta360 One R, you can change from a 4K camera to a 360 camera quite easily. It's just a matter of pulling off the battery base, removing the 4K mod, adding the 360 mod, and then reattaching the base. And just like that, we've gone from a 4K wide-angle action camera to a 360 degree camera. No matter whether you're shooting with the 360 mod or the 4K wide-angle mod, it is completely waterproof. Now, in order for it to be waterproof, you do have to have it mounted in the frame. Now, the frame for the Insta360 One R is one thing that I'm not too fond of, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The camera is actually quite small when it's in this form here, but as soon as we add it to the frame, it becomes quite a bit bulkier. You can see here when we have the 360 mod installed, it's actually almost bigger than the LumaFusion now. It's not quite as tall, but it is wider and it is thicker. Then of course when you compare it to something like the Insta360 One X, it's quite a bit larger. That's a very small thing, but that kind of leads me into my next point. The frame serves two purposes. First of all, it keeps all the components snugged up tight together, and it gives it the GoPro style mounting option at the bottom. And when you compare it to a GoPro, you can see that there is a significant size difference. Now this year, GoPro introduced a camera that no longer needs a frame. The finger mounts are built right into the bottom. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of that. It's a lot less fussing around. It keeps the camera form factor quite small. So that's one thing I wish Insta360 had done differently with the Insta360 One R, is maybe built the finger mounts into the bottom of the battery, made these connections a little bit more secure so it didn't need a frame to hold it all together. Now I'm going to switch back here to the 4K mod. And this is something that I really like about the Insta360 One R, is that you can switch the screen from front to back quite easy. It's a very simple solution for people who want a front-facing screen if you're going to be vlogging. We remove the battery base. We take it, we flip the screen, we reattach the battery base, and now you can see we have a screen facing the front. To me, that's just brilliant, unlike GoPro where we now have to buy that media mod and then get the display mod if we want a front-facing screen for vlogging. Now, the screen on the Insta360 One R is not very large. It's actually quite a bit smaller than the GoPro screen, but it's enough to get the job done. Now, while we're on the topic of vlogging, I kind of want to talk about connecting a microphone to the Insta360 One R. Right now, it's pretty well near impossible for a couple different reasons, and this is going to change as time goes on, as different hardware and accessories get released. Now, just like the Osmo Action and a GoPro, you do have to connect a microphone adapter to be able to connect a microphone. It just attaches inside there to the USB-C port. Now, one thing they've done right is give it a really nice price. The microphone adapter for the Insta360 One R is only $13. That's compared to the $50 price tag for the GoPro one, and I think $40 for the Osmo Action one. Not only that, it is tiny. If you've seen the one for the GoPro, it's a great big dongle and just very awkward to use. The other problem is that there's not really any kind of hardware or frames for the Insta360 One R to be able to connect a microphone. I haven't been able to find a frame that has a cold shoe where you can mount a microphone easily. I'm sure those will be coming. The Insta360 company isn't as popular when it comes to action cameras as something like GoPro, who has been around for years. When GoPro releases a new camera, the market gets flooded with third-party accessories right away. I'm pretty sure we'll see them for the Insta360 One R when in action camera mode, but we will probably have to wait a little bit. So at this point, it's hard to vlog if you want to add an external microphone. Now, the audio built into the Insta360 One R is actually quite good. I think it's a little bit better than the Hero 8 Black. Now, I'm a huge fan of action cameras and 360 cameras for travel. I gave up my DSLR years ago, and I only film my holidays, travel, family vacations with an action camera or a 360 camera. For me, I just got tired of carrying around all the gear and lenses and that. And for the kind of content that I create, an action camera is perfect. Action cameras are small, portable, they're durable, they're waterproof. So unless you're really into photography, I think a system like this is perfect for those who want to capture their adventures. It's small and compact. You can get a very small camera bag and keep all the components inside. It's easy to travel with and easy to carry with you when you're out sightseeing. Now that kind of leads me to my next point, where the convenience of having a modular system could also be a downfall to some people. If you're a person who maybe is going to be shooting with 360 camera primarily and maybe grabbing a little bit of wide angle footage once in a while, it's not so bad. Or vice versa, if you're going to be filming most of your adventures with the wide angle camera and just going to grab a little bit of 360 footage now and then, it's not so bad. But if you're a person who likes to get a lot of both, you're going to be constantly switching back and forth. And in some situations, especially when you are around water or in sand, different things like that, it's maybe not always ideal. And doing it several times a day could start to get a little bit frustrating, especially when you got to take it out of the frame first, take it apart, put it back together. It's not a big chore, but if you're doing that 20, 30 times a day, changing things up, trying to get different shots, it could start to become irritating by the end of the day. If you're a person who likes to go back and forth a little bit, sometimes it's easier to have two dedicated cameras. I usually carry a small messenger with me when we're out, and I have both of these stuck inside, and I can easily switch back and forth. Now that's not a perfect scenario either, because it comes at a higher cost. You have to buy two separate cameras, you have to buy batteries for both, so it can be a lot more costly. So that could also be a factor when choosing what kind of system is best for you. Now another really interesting benefit to having a modular system like this is the cost. First of all, like we just talked about, it's a lot cheaper to buy this modular system than to buy a dedicated action camera and to buy a dedicated 360 camera. And not only that, when it comes to upgrading or repair, if you happen to drop it and you damage the screen, all you have to do is replace the core. Or if you happen to damage the lens mod, you can replace it fairly inexpensively instead of having to replace the whole camera. Now you might be coming from the Insta360 One X, and with it you're actually getting a bit of an upgrade and a little bit of a downgrade. For the most part you are getting an upgrade. Of course you've got the modular features, but you have a nice touchscreen now, which the Insta360 One X does not have. It's now waterproof without a housing. Of course you can get additional housing if you do want to go deeper, but definitely those are some huge upgrades coming from the Insta360 One X. Now the downgrade is that the stitching is not as good. Because the camera body is so much thicker, the stitch lines can be a little bit more prevalent. The Insta360 One X actually does an excellent job at stitching, but in general it does a good job. It's not really something that I would worry about too much or base a decision on. So with this modular setup, there's a lot of really great features. There are a few disadvantages, but really the features outweigh the disadvantages by far. I've really enjoyed using it, and I think I'm going to be using it a lot this summer. So let's change gears here a little bit, and we'll talk about the software and some of the features. Insta360 has an amazing app for the Insta360 One R. It's much more powerful than the GoPro app. You can do a lot more. Now that can be a good thing and a bad thing. If you're a person who likes to get in and get creative, you can do a lot with the Insta360 One R. Sometimes I find the app is a little cluttered and hard to find certain features. The GoPro app is pretty streamlined and easy to navigate, but for those who like to get creative with their editing, the GoPro app does not have near amount of features as the Insta360 One R app. So I've got the Insta360 One R app open here, and I just want to show you a couple really interesting features that I really like about it. One of the nice features is you can change your field of view after you've shot. With a GoPro, you set your field of view before you start recording. You can set it to wide, linear, super view, depending on how much data you want to capture. With the Insta360 One R, you can set that after you've already recorded. So when you're in editing, you can then change the field of view depending on what you want the shot to look like. So right now you can see here it's in ultra wide. If I tap on it, it goes to wide. If I tap on it again, it goes to linear mode. So you're going to get rid of all that curvature and distortion. And then I can even go in further to narrow. Now, of course, with a GoPro, you can crop in later when you're editing, but all that distortion is still going to be there. So being able to change the field of view on the fly when editing is actually a really nice feature. Now, the Insta360 One R does take some really nice HDR photos, and the nice benefit of it over something like a GoPro is that it actually stores the bracketed images on the memory card. It will process the images automatically within the app, but if you're a person who likes to tinker with your own HDR photos in a third-party app, you can copy those files over to your PC or Mac and do your own HDR editing. And here's an example here again of being able to mount your 360 camera and kind of get that floating camera effect. Well folks, that's basically it for my video. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long. These are just some opinions I've developed after using the Insta360 One R for about 60 days. The bottom line is, I think it's a great little camera. It's economical. The quality of content is superb. The stabilization is fantastic. It's right on par with the GoPro. It's an all-around great camera. You can basically get an action camera and a 360 camera for the price of a GoPro, a little bit more. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and got some value out of it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next one.